Hello, my glorious
Hello.
people.
Hello.
Welcome to the Forge Forward podcast. I'm your host again, Phil De Cruz. Joining me, Connections Unstoppable CEO, Courtney Smith. Say hey to the crowd, mate.
Hello, everybody. Lovely to have you here today.
Thank you. Hey, we've got something special today. We've got Professor Chris Berg from the RMIT Blockchain Innovation. Say hi to all your students out there, mate.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Oh, Courtney, take us off.
Okay,
We've got a
well, this is
cracker.
an interesting one. I had the delight to work with Chris and some of his teammates at RMIT when we were looking at a community project around blockchain initiatives and crypto going back a couple of years. We got to get to know the team, the Blockchain Innovation Hub, the D3 launch that RMIT was taking to market. And so from that perspective, what I'd love to know from you, Chris, is a little bit about your background, your journey, what's got you to here, and what are some of those things you think you can share with us at the Forge conference?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, guys. As I say, a real pleasure to be here. So I've got a interesting background. So I actually started my career in public policy. I worked for a think tank in Melbourne. And in retrospect, what I did a lot of was studying the impact of new technology on public policy choices. So what does the internet do to some of our long established laws and regulations and so forth around things like free speech and surveillance and privacy and all those really fascinating areas, and the sharing economy. We did a lot of work on those sort of areas. I joined RMIT in 2017, and I was very quickly attracted to the frontier technologies that my colleagues at RMIT were studying as well, particularly around blockchain technology, because blockchain it's a fascinating technology for a bunch of reasons. But what is most exciting to me about this technology is how it reshapes how we think about some of the most basic social infrastructure that we use. So what does blockchain do to the nature of money? It changes money, this ancient institution. It changes even the way firms work and supply chains and so forth. So at RMIT, my focus has been looking at frontier technologies and trying to figure out how they change the economy and society, and frankly, how we should respond to those changes.
Yeah,
there's lots of societal things to consider. I mean, the first one that comes to mind is that we've got regulators and governments and all sorts of people setting policies and wanting a piece of the pie, so to speak, in the society we live. How do you think those people are seeing this future tech? How are they engaging with it? What are they scared of? What are they nervous about?
I think the way to answer that is you've got to put yourself in their shoes. So the way political incentives are, they don't really get any credit if things are going fantastically well. If the economy is growing, they only marginally get some benefit, but they're not going to get great credit if there's fantastic new technologies, there's autonomous vehicles, or things that make our lives materially a lot better, right?
Yep.
They don't get any benefit from that, but they do get a lot of blame when things go wrong. So if those autonomous vehicles hit someone, then suddenly everybody's up in arms, like, why weren't you regulating it? Why weren't you fixing this problem ahead of time? So their immediate response is frankly fear. And it's not because they personally are fearful of the technology. It's because all the incentives have aligned to encourage them to worry about consequences rather than think about opportunities. Now, it's quite different in the private sector, but in the public sector, that's absolutely the case. And so when politicians engage with frontier technology, they typically look at it and go, well, what will go wrong? What can I imagine will go wrong? And therefore, what will I be blamed for before the next election?
They look ahead. Yes. Yeah.
So in a data-driven world, and with all of these technologies being heavily focused around data and the ability to trap data and use it as a tool of measurement and understanding, even if the statistics demonstrate clearly, for example, let's assume that Elon Musk solves the autonomous driving problem with his full self-driving technologies. At what point and what will they need to look under the hood to get that confidence?
That's a great question. So I don't have an answer to that question because they don't have an answer to that question.
Yeah, it's true.
The explainability problem of a lot of these technologies, it's not just interesting it doesn't just present product design challenges, which it absolutely does, but it also presents these really complex regulatory questions. And I've been looking at the way recent governments have been trying to address unknown technology problems, problems that are very hard to define. And frankly, what they're doing is they're kicking it into the long grass. So the current model seems to be, well, why don't we just empower regulators to look at problems in the future rather than trying to figure out what the problems are today? Now, I can understand why they're doing that. I worry that there's some pretty significant democratic consequences and costs to that. But because we don't know how to regulate these technologies yet, like in a really practical sense, they're really struggling to write the regulations that would that would achieve whatever goal they're trying to achieve.
Yeah, look, it's amazing to me because one of the reasons why we wanted to bring you on, Chris, was the big disruptors, the colliding S curves, so to speak, that are going to change the way in which we live, both personally and in our work lives. That concept that we need to think about. Let's AI is one of those big topics, and let's assume that blockchain or crypto is another one of those big topics. What a lot of people I'm finding aren't seeing or don't recognize is that some are actually the solve to others, the issues in others. Like, for example, I've seen commentary around that, if we need to know what is real news in an exponential AI content world, we might need to know who's real and what are the tools that allow us to determine that. So I'd love to hear some of your thoughts and aspects around that. Would be amazing.
So look, I think it's the big issue that we're facing at the moment, because it's not that we're just adopting one new technology. We're not just adopting AI. We're adopting AI at the same time as we're adopting blockchain, as we're adopting the Internet of Things, as we're getting you've raised Elon Musk, the incredible reduction in cost of satellites, so low Earth orbit technologies. We're just getting a wave. Very soon we're going to get quantum computers that will be competitive with classical computers. This is a wave of technology that's coming at policymakers and businesses and entrepreneurs that we have to adopt at the same time. And as you say, it's not just that we have to adopt any one of those technologies or any sequence of those technologies. It's that they are really fantastic when they're combined. You can use blockchain to make AI work better. You can use, artificial intelligence. If it's going to trade items of value, it's going to want to trade on distributed ledger systems like blockchains. We can put AI data centers up in orbit, low Earth orbit data centers, in order to both protect and deal with jurisdictional issues around data management and data privacy and so forth. So there's it's not just these individual frontier technologies, there's the combination that creates all sorts of, fascinating challenges if you're a policymaker, but incredible opportunities if you're in business. And I can talk a bit more about that, but some of the work that we've been doing at the moment has been trying to play out the consequences of these for rapid change and adoption of new institutions and new ideas about the way, not just what we produce and how we produce it, but the sort of social political context in which we produce things. What does this mean for the nation state? What does this mean for the traditional corporation? What does this mean for us as consumers as well?
I saw you mentioned satellites. Incredible to think that we've got a spaceship, Starship, that is carrying over 100 tons of payload, therefore provides an opportunity to distribute satellite technology like no other time in history. But even then, I've heard of disruptors that sit off the back of that, like that if you can put fabrication systems in low orbit space, it's much better for getting down the size of the fabrication and the clinical components around working in a vacuum, etc. Now, I'm not a manufacturing expert, but I hear these other collisions coming off the side of that as well that I'd never even considered, mate. Like, it blows my mind.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I think I'll make 2 points about that, which is that, another one of these technologies is 3D printing, which I don't know. A few years ago, everybody was very bullish on 3D printing as it was going to radically change manufacturing. And it has, but it really has in the background. It's made a lot more customization and so forth. But as you say, the fact that what Elon Musk has managed to do with SpaceX, it's not just a reduction. It's not just massive new platforms that a massive new platform that he's built to get stuff up in space. He's it's like 100x reduction in the cost of getting things in space. We're just going to put a lot more stuff in space, and things that were absurd and things that were obviously too expensive are suddenly well within the bounds in the next couple of years. So you could put easily manufacturing, from an economic perspective at least, you can easily put and afford manufacturing something in space. In fact, that's the entire plan behind Mars colonies and so forth. That now we can do these sorts of things.
I was just about to go there with colonizing Mars. I was like,
exactly,
we're heading there.
And colonizing Mars is
terrifying.
I guess what I would say about that, it's an exciting thing for us all to think about. But what I think is the most consequential is just the sheer amount of satellites and capability we're going to be putting in low Earth orbit that is going to have really material impact on our day-to-day lives. If you just think about what the impact of GPS has been to your own personal life, just traveling around your own home city or traveling around the world, satellite communication has changed so much of your day-to-day life. Imagine if we did that, if that was 100 times cheaper, how much more would we be doing?
It's
the
too
data
much
that we would get. Insane.
Exactly.
Exponentiality, we're living in it, which is incredible.
Well, mate, you've got a very unique perspective on stuff, which is great. I guess, what do you want the attendees to walk away with after hearing your insights at Forge?
Look, I mean, the first thing that and it's not just Forge, I mean, everybody needs to understand that we are living through a frontier technology threshold, that the pace of change is exponential, and the impact of that change is exponential as well. Now, as I said, that creates policy challenges, but most importantly and most excitingly, it blows open the opportunity space. And so when you think about bringing in new technology into old ideas, or creating new combinations of new technologies and so forth, it's very easy for us to think, well, there may be tons of people around the world working on it, but the heuristic that I use is, for any given community, there's only a couple of hundred people working on anywhere near the problems that you're interested in. So this new wave of technology, more than any time in history, gives you as an individual entrepreneur or leader or member of a community the capability to do new things. So Sam Altman, who's the CEO of OpenAI, he prophesized the other day that in the next couple of years we're almost certainly going to have our first one-person billion-dollar company. Now, that might not be you, that might not be any of us here, but it does show the sudden force multiplier that these technologies can have on our ambitions. There's a line that was very influential to me when I was younger, by the economist Tyler Cohen, that the most important thing that you can do to a young person is raise their ambitions. I think this selection of technologies that we have now should raise all our ambitions. It should allow us to think about new things that we can do that maybe 5 years ago we thought were absurd or for someone else.
Oh, look, we've come off a podcast with an 83-year-old urban shaman who you'll get to meet hopefully at Forge, and he talked about this concept of the same exponential opportunity, but he also said that we need to have exponential collaboration, because what we're missing is the opportunity to see the gaps that industries don't get to generally overlap. So his challenge was, and I'm going to make it a challenge after speaking to him, was to go away from Forge and talk to 4 people from different industries and have a collab session, a lunch, and talk about the challenges you face and see what the 4 come up with as a redesign. And I just love that thinking. I just loved it, particularly if you're coming from some signals. I'm gonna hold you to something here, not crazy. What do you think is going to be the biggest single change we see in the next 5 years? Have you got any concept of something you think is going to land, it's going to happen, and you're just going to go, everyone's just going to go, what the hell?
I think we've already seen it. I think we've just seen it. I think that generative AI has been it has had an explosive impact on an area of work that we thought was mostly immune from technological change, which is white collar work.
Yep.
I think that even if AI didn't develop any further from here, that explosive change has already occurred. Now,
Yeah.
all we're doing is figuring out how best to use it. What can we use it most for? And at the moment, what our research has suggested is that the impact of that technology has been very it's been very unequal across organizations, because some people have got that drive to experiment with the technology and some people don't have that drive to experiment with the technology. Yep. The people who have the drive are getting outsized productivity gains than their colleagues, just because they're the first people to play with it. And so, I've always said that the way to understand these technologies is to just use them. The people who can take that experimental, just use it approach are winning in that sort of global employment. So as I say, I think that is the one big thing that's changed. I think it changed everything. I think all these other technologies that are coming through will increase that rate of change, but the big change has already occurred.
Simon Wallace said, and I think you've just beautifully described it, and it's a common theme, and I think it's one of the most important themes any of us as technology leaders can talk to, is the concept of a T-shaped person, not an I-shaped person. And the T-shaped person is someone that's prepared to lean in and look at things on a wide spectrum and not get caught up in their day-to-day. And I think if anyone takes anything away, Neville, 83, he reckons he's working 15x what he was before LLMs, 15x. So, look, what an opportunity to be live. I'm going to ask you an interesting question, and I'm hoping to get Ben Simpson, who I think you know, as part of the speaking panels on day one. No one would have thought that someone could jump, we'll call it extensive, order of magnitude jump an S&P index by investing in a crypto technology. Have you got any insights to talk about Michael Saylor or anyone like that, or any experiences you can bring to bear where we can blow someone's mind out of this session today and we get to evolve out a little bit more at Forge?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think what the crypto industry has shown us is that when you give a retail market access to early stage technology, you see both the good and the bad. You see incredible successes and incredible products, and of course, you see a lot of the things that we worry about, which is the scams and the and to some extent crimes and so forth. But to my mind, what's happened in crypto, in fact, and it's not just crypto, it's also, if you recall, the Robinhood. The Robinhood events that happened during COVID. This is the democratization of the financial industry. So we went through, at the start of this century, we went through the democratization of the media. When the internet came for media and completely disrupted it. Now we are going through a wave of democratization of the financial sector, where the internet has finally really come for this incredibly important industry. The knock-on effects for that are going to be extraordinary. I think there's all the incentives, all the drivers that drove those big Robinhood debates and the big crypto, different crypto boom and bust cycles. They are going to be with us forever, and we are going to have to learn to live with that and learn to live in what is a much more exciting, but also somewhat more chaotic financial sector.
Oh, look, it's amazing. I haven't heard the alignment between internet and media and I'll call it crypto and finance. So I'm loving that little snippet of information. It means that transactionally a web page or any piece of script can become financial. Is that right? Is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah, look, partly. I think what has excited us about the sort of combination of blockchain technology and the tokens that run on them and smart contracts is that we can make out of more financial agreements, more assets, we can make tradable property rights using this technology. Now, that's always been true to an extent. So you can always and have always been able to hire lawyers in order to create a bespoke trading asset off some bizarre contract that you might have, your future stream of income and so forth. But it's been incredibly expensive to do so because lawyers are very expensive. Now we are able to democratize that. So we can do much more complex financial assets effectively automatically. And what is also really cool, again, to bring back to this, it's a lot of technology at the same time. Then we can have AIs do the design and the trading of those assets as well. Again, I think we haven't experienced the same sudden overnight shock with blockchain as we have with AI, but the long run implications of a rapid financialization and tokenization of the economy, I think are genuinely very profound and very important.
Yeah. I love it. Real world asset tokenization. We'll get to that at Forge. That's incredible. And particularly with public works, massive public works projects and all sorts of things that are in the sector of the market we operate in. The other one I saw, which was around GPS, was the decentralization and democratization of GPS tracking and mapping the world. So what took Google 15, 20 years, a little organization with a token structure around it's built and a webcam, or an in-vehicle webcam has built literally an engine that shows the roads networks called HiveMapper. So yeah, it blows my mind. These intersections are just incredible, Chris. So thanks for sharing those amazing insights and getting me excited, because this is what I love to talk about.
Oh.
It's very interesting stuff. I think there's going to be a lot of people blown away at the event because they lack their knowledge in this sector, and I think it will be a big eye opener when you start speaking, mate. I can't wait. Is there any challenges you see in the industries that are facing today, and how would you address them if you could?
I mean, there are enormous challenges. Most prosaically, it's how to direct your attention, because there's just this wave of innovation. Again, let's just stick only with AI. There is an enormous wave of new applications and, well, more importantly, new capabilities with these models happening every single day, and that's not an exaggeration. I get notifications from Meta and from Google and from OpenAI.
The Neuron, I use the Neuron like it's crazy, right? Yeah.
There's something new every single day.
How do you keep track?
I mean, frankly, you don't, right? So the challenge, in one sense, that's always the entrepreneur's challenge. How do you both keep up with something but commit enough to bring something novel to market that will be a leader or will add value? So that's always going to be difficult. But that is a real challenge right now, when we know that this technology is revolutionary. It's so early stage, but it's so impactful that there's you want to both be on the bandwagon, but also that what's going to be released tomorrow is going to be even better. That's going to be
obsolete.
That's right.
That is a difficulty.
I'm trying to look at it in the point of view, like, I'm a construction company. There's so many tools out there. How do I know to pick the right ones to increase productivity and increase profitability? I don't know what to choose from. Like, I don't know how to get to it. I find that a challenge. Yeah,
it is. I can provide some heuristics. A lot of these technologies, particularly in the AI space, are what we call bottom-up technologies. They're technologies that are being adopted by your employees first to do their job better, because they know how they do their job, whether that's how they write an email or how they write a report at a very prosaic level. But it's at that very prosaic and very mechanistic level that's where the productivity gains from generative AI particularly come from. I write emails in one way. You, I no doubt, write emails in a slightly different way. Maybe generative AI is fantastic for you, but is useless for me. Maybe it's great for writing my reports, but you've just never found any use for it. It's all very specific to you, the employee.
Yeah.
So if you're a manager, trying to figure out, well, how can we get the productivity benefits? You actually have to learn from your employees themselves. You can't just drop in some new AI tool and say, hey, everyone, we're all using
I
this
paid
today.
$5,000 for this. Use it.
It's incredibly
Yeah.
expensive. I bought you all some training and it'll solve, and you'll all write emails in this particular way. It's a bottom-up technology. What you need to do is you need to learn from your team, and you need to encourage your team to share the way they use the technology with each other. Because if it's a bottom-up technology, that's where the gains are going to come from. They're not going to come from you.
Yeah.
I think it's it's radically different. It's not like just buying a machine, popping it into a factory, training everybody how to use the machine, and getting more widgets per hour than you did prior. It's a much more subtle. It's much more based on what we call local information, local knowledge about how people actually do their job.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's
Yep.
good information. It kind of leads me into a conversation which is probably a bit more philosophical around fixed mindset and the requirements for some people to change their operating system. Finbar O'Hanlon, who's also someone I know who's spoken at RMIT, talks about this OS 2.0, a shift change in the way in which we look at the way in how we deal with technology, and particularly that sharing of information and knowledge and the ability to consume it, I think, is the other side, to change your viewpoint a little bit on how to consume. A question: do you let your students use? I know it's a hard one to answer. Maybe you don't want to answer. Do you let your students use generative AI for their subject matter these days? Is that something they're allowed to do?
It's actually entirely based on the individual lecturer. So a lot of lecturers at RMIT do. A lot of lecturers at RMIT have actually built in assessment tasks that either assume or require the use of generative AI. And I think, and to my mind, this makes sense because
I'm so glad to hear that, to be honest, Chris. Like
we are training, we're training students to operate in a world where these technologies exist. We shouldn't pretend that they don't exist. So we should judge the quality of people's work on the quality of work that they submit, not on the mechanism that they use to get there. As long as it's ethical, as long as it's not plagiarized. If you're using ChatGPT or any of these other applications to help you in your work, you will continue to do so when you're in the job market as well. And so we should be widely recognizing that that's the case. And that look, not everybody has that same view in academia, but certainly at RMIT, a lot of my colleagues do.
Wow. On that note, and let's, while we're on academia, because I see academia being one of the big disruptions as well in terms of AI, personalized learning, right? We can almost talk now to the fact that you could almost go online if you had the tools, capability, and resources, do a Harvard degree in philosophy, almost, right? Yeah. Without the interaction with the people, which is a really important part of learning. Don't get me wrong. What's your personal vision for education, and where do you see it in the next 5 years?
Look, I think that what you're describing is incredibly disruptive and incredibly important. What something like ChatGPT is really good at is mentoring you through content you don't understand.
Yep.
If you don't understand a question, you like, what does this word mean? What does this concept mean? Where did this come from? It will give you a pretty good answer almost all of the time, certainly on the sort of stuff that we would expect an education system to be able to do so. And so in that sense, it's just the world's most powerful mentor. And it's a mentor that doesn't judge you, that doesn't get tired, that isn't busy. It's a very compelling piece. Now, education as a category of human endeavor is more than that, because it's not just, can I understand this concept? You need to understand what concepts to understand and how to map them together amongst other similar concepts. So you still need, at this stage, you still need human guidance to learn about what you need to learn about. And I think that's really important. But again, when given that guidance, and that guidance can be given in concert and collaboration with your robot, you should be able to, if you are highly motivated, navigate your way through a simulacrum of an education
Yeah.
program.
Yeah, look, micro credentials, crazy world we're living into. I've just looked up and we're at 30 minutes. I could go to 60 minutes in a heartbeat with you, Chris. But we want to keep it short and punchy and leave all the good stuff for Forge, which for our audience is on 12th, 13th, and 14th of November, where Chris will be doing a keynote on the disruptors that are coming and the signals you need to think about in business to stay ahead of the curve. Chris, it's been an incredible journey this afternoon, or we are in this afternoon. Sorry, this day's going quickly. And I've really enjoyed the conversation. So thank you so much for your insights, and it's been a pleasure to have you on board.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure.
Thank you for your time, Chris. Thank you.
Cheers.